2, 1.
Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Powered by EXP Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
So I recently went to New York, Matt.
New York City.
New York City.
So nice.
And
they named it twice.
So nice they named it twice.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that?
I had no idea. No. But it's been a long time. It's probably been 8 years, 6 years.
I've never been to Manhattan. I've never been to New York. I've never been anywhere. I took a road trip from California through Arizona, New Mexico, and into Texas. And I've been to Oregon. But I've never really traveled outside of the West Coast.
Do you like
traveling? The West
traveling?
Coast is the best coast. I do, but I've always had family obligations. And so it's tough. Our bucket list goal for our family is to go to the East Coast and go up through Philadelphia, Washington, do all of that.
Boston, see all
Yes.
that.
Oh my gosh. But that's like a month-long trip. We want to drive acrough country and do that.
Man, that's a commitment to the family, though.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You guys are going to either come back solid as a rock or, somebody's getting left. Somebody's going to be left somewhere.
It would probably end up being me.
Yep.
Me and my wife are going to get into an issue, and she's going to leave me on the side of the road.
So Valor and I, we did a lot of traveling. We traveled all 50 states together before we had kids.
In a car?
So the northwestern United States was a big loop in a car. The southwestern was a big loop in a car. And then after that, I only had so many vacation days when I was working in the oil fields. And so
So you didn't do all 50 states in one run.
No. It was
took breaks.
7 different trips. So Alaska, Hawaii were their own thing, northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast. And then there was we call it the linchpin, where we flew into Columbus, Ohio, went up to Fargo, North Dakota, and came down to Dallas.
Wow.
So
now, wait, did you fly to Alaska or did you drive through Canada to Alaska?
We flew.
Okay, I thought so.
Flew to Anchorage.
Obviously, you flew to Hawaii because that's quite a drive.
We swam.
You swam.
Yeah. We flew to Hawaii, did the whole Road to Hana thing in Maui, and yeah, that was that. But
so you're with your sister in New York.
So we were taking a ferry across the Hudson, and we're looking at the Manhattan skyscape, and Skyline, and I was looking at it. I was like, this looks completely different. And I remember
from when you had been there previously, years ago.
Just previously. And so when I was last there, they were starting a project called Hudson. I think it's Hudson Yards, and now they're basically done. And these beautiful, beautiful buildings are finished, and they're just sparkling. And it was a total. It's very interesting, like in your mind, how things sometimes are frozen in time.
Sure.
And then you go and I have not gone to a high school reunion because in my mind, everybody's still their 18-year-old selves.
Right.
And I'm curious, I don't know. And I'm still my 18-year-old self.
Right, exactly.
And they're going to see me in person and be like, oh man,
you haven't changed a bit.
No, you've changed a lot. We liked you better the other way.
How have you changed since high school?
So with my sister, we don't get to spend a lot of time together. And so we were just kind of reminiscing and talking, and she was like, hey, you've changed. And it got me thinking about, hey, how have I changed? Have I changed? And I think you need to be changing in order to be growing.
Sure.
Right? If the tree when it's first planted isn't the same tree, 30 years later. And so there's good changes and bad changes, but if you're not at least evolving, developing yourself personally, then there's potentially something wrong there. And so how I would probably describe myself as changing, we probably need to have Valerie on the show and see what she says about all this.
Your wife, Valerie.
My wife, Valerie. But
because you've been with her since high school, right?
No. So we met her freshman year of college.
Okay. So still when you were relatively young.
Yeah.
So she has seen change and growth in you over the many years.
Yeah. So we got together in 2010, and so 2024 right now. So 14 years.
You haven't gained any of that dad weight. Right?
I lost weight.
Wow, that's incredible.
Valerie and I lost. Well, I won't share Valerie's side of that story, but I lost about 45 pounds.
Wow.
So yeah. So people say, oh, you're thin. You're lucky you have a fast metabolism. Not the case. I just don't eat as much as
eat.
People. Yeah, I just don't eat.
You just drink lots of coffee.
Yep. Decaf right now. But so what I noticed in the cities in the Skyline was change and a lot of opportunity. Like just one of those buildings. Just imagine if you owned just one of those buildings, how your financial picture would change. Or let's say you worked on one of those buildings. Maybe that provided an income. Or let's say you're now living in one of those buildings, and now it provides you with a safe place to live in Lower Manhattan. And so it's just pretty interesting how life goes on and things evolve, and you need to be a part of it. You need to get into it. And so we're hearing a lot of objections right now in real estate about, hey, we're going to wait until after the elections. We're going to wait until after this. We're going to wait until interest rates drop. We're going to wait until prices come down. And those three things, prices, interest rates, and elections, are things I've been hearing now for a very long time. And the people who said that in 2012 wished they would have bought in 2012.
Right.
People who said that in 16, 20, and now 24 are going to wish that they had purchased when 28 rolls around. And so my encouragement to people listening to this is, you know what? Don't be like Johnny visiting New York and come back 6 years later and it looked totally different. You want to get involved. You want to get out there.
So what would you say to those family members, those couples that are feeling nervous, anxious, worried, fearful about those changes?
Yeah. So first of all, I totally get where they're coming from. Like this is we deal with this day in and day out. Like Val and I have bought and sold homes. We've invested in real estate. Like we've been in these people's shoes. Like this, we're coming from a place of empathy. But at the same time, you have to take a step forward. You have to grow. You have to want to improve your life. Like if you have this goal, just take that first step. Do some pre-planning with a real estate agent. It doesn't cost you anything. I've had many conversations where people wished they would have started the process sooner, but I've had nobody say, hey, we started it too soon.
Can you explain what you mean by starting the process?
Yeah, so there's a lot of the news. Tom Daves likes to say the news likes to terrify rather than clarify. And so starting the process just means talking with somebody who can get you accurate, up-to-date information about what's happening in the real estate market. So you may think interest rates are high, but are they as high as you think they are? You may think prices are going to come down, but are they? You may think foreclosures are going to happen, but is there any evidence to support that claim?
Right.
And so just get some good information on which to create a plan.
So how do they do that? Do they just call up you guys if they're nervous, like I don't want to sign any contracts, I don't want to get into any long-term commitments?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Yeah, so the easiest way is just to go to madeformoreliving.com. Just type in madeformoreliving.com or just Google us. You can Google Tom Daves and Google Made for More, and you'll see us, Made for More Realty, and you'll see us pop up on Google. We have tons of reviews. So whether you're looking to work with us or anybody, I would honestly just read through the reviews and see what do people have to say after having worked with that real estate agent. And
then just call you guys up and say, hey, I'd like to have an initial conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to sell or I'm not ready to buy, but I just want to talk and get informed.
Exactly.
Right?
Hey, so I met with a guy yesterday in Natomas. He owns a condo, and he was wanting some information on what he thought his condo was currently worth. And so we're sitting down, and one of the questions I always ask is, okay, so in a perfect world, when would you like to have this home sold? And he told me 5 years. And I was like, okay, well, the pricing is going to be very different from now in 5 years, but we're all about those long-term relationships.
Sure.
And so we just set up a game plan. He needed some vendor recommendations so he could chip away at things that he wanted to get done prior to putting it on the market. We have this great tool where it provides you with an equity report every single month. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. And so we set him up with that tool so that way he knows what's happening to his home. And if he has any questions, he can reach out to us directly. And again, he's planning to make this move maybe in 5 years.
Right.
And so we do this all the time. So just reach out to us and start the conversation.
But I like what you're saying in terms of not being afraid of change, afraid of growth, afraid of taking the next step, because you and I both know, we're men of faith, that tomorrow is not guaranteed.
Absolutely.
If we don't live in the moment, take advantage of the opportunities that we have now, they may never come, and things may get worse, things may get better, but we have seen that things are cyclical, and that, when you take those leap of faiths, when you take those challenges to grow and change, they're usually always pay off in some way if you are focused on some kind of plan of growing and changing.
Yeah, I can't think of the last time, if ever, I heard anybody say, man, I really regret buying that house.
Right.
But I've heard so many times, man, I wish I would have gotten in the market sooner.
Right.
And so, like, just think about your own personal interactions and how, like, friends and family members and just people you know, how many of them feel the same way. Like, so I have this analogy of where you hold a water bottle. Like, a water bottle is not very heavy, like just your typical run-of-the-mill plastic water bottle. Hold it out in front of you. And you can do that. But after a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, it starts getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And the longer you delay in making this decision to move forward, not just buying or selling a home, but any decision in life, the heavier that decision gets.
Right.
And it just seems harder to make that initial start the conversation.
It's true. And I will be honest, I sometimes suffer from that. Indecisiveness, where I want to make the perfect decision. Like, I just feel like, oh my gosh, if I make this decision, what's going to happen? Well, if I make this decision, what will happen? And I just get caught up on making the absolute most perfect decision that I become indecisive and I don't move and I become paralyzed, or I get filled with anxiety and worry, and that's just super unproductive, and it's doing nobody good. And it grows.
And it does nobody any good. And here's the harsh reality, Matt, is that making no decision is still a decision.
Right,
so
good point.
You're worried about, not you specifically, but if somebody's worried about making a decision about whether or not to buy a home or whether they should wait, well, making the decision to wait is still a decision. So my suggestion is, hey, just go out, have a conversation, get some real information, go out, tour some homes. Inventory's tight right now. If you're thinking about selling a home and you're also wanting to buy, there may not even be anything on the market this exact moment that you're interested in. But better to find that out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Information is power, and it doesn't hurt to have those conversations. You've got the time, you're a busy guy, but you'll make the time to have those conversations, or someone on your team. Yeah. And so how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so just go to madeformoreliving.com. Just go ahead and Google madeformoreliving.com, or you can just look us up. Just type in Made for More on the search bar, Made for More Realty, and we'll pop right up.
There you go. All right, what are we talking about next?
So next, we're going to talk about Who Not How. It's an incredible book and what that has to do with real estate and open houses.
Oftentimes we hear someone ask, what is it going to cost me if I choose to do that now? But rarely do you ever hear someone ask, well, what's it going to cost me if I choose to wait? And that's something we really need to consider and ask ourselves when it comes to selling your home. What's it going to cost me if I choose to wait? Right now is a perfect time to pull the trigger, especially when you're working with my friend Johnny Jennings and the Made for More Living team. You're going to get the most money possible in the shortest amount of time. He's going to treat you right. You can trust him, just like so many of our listeners have. So reach out to Johnny Jennings, Made for More Living. No matter what kind of condition your home is in, he can help. Google Made for More Living, because you get more with Made for More and Johnny Jennings.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Open houses. So we do a lot of open houses here on the Made for More team. We're big fans of them. In fact, 1 in 10 homes sell because of an open house.
Oh, really? 1 in 10 homes, 10% of homes sell because of an open house. Yep. Does that mean somebody's just dropping by and they see it, or because someone's in the market and they go visit an open house?
Yeah, so very rarely will it be somebody who's just randomly dropping by and they'll be like, oh, this is perfect, I need to buy this. Because there's a whole lot that needs to happen before then. They need to figure out, are they in a lease, or do they need to sell their home first? What's their financing look like? That there's all these dominoes that need to fall before you actually write it up and close on a home. So typically it's somebody who's out with their realtor, or the realtor's not available, and so they're taking advantage of the open house.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So why does your team at Made for More like open houses?
Yeah. So there's, at the end of the day, we make money when we get clients what they want. Right. And so with open houses, that's one stone, that's one tool in a realtor's tool belt, if you will, where we can help them get what they want. And so that's why we typically do at least one open house the first weekend or the second weekend on the market, or if there's a price improvement, we'll do an open house after that. Because we do so much. We do so much in terms of marketing, radio, digital, social media. We have actual like people who work for us that will call through the community. We do direct mailing. We do all these different marketing avenues. But we put a sign in the yard. But you want to leave you don't want to leave a stone unturned. And so that last stone typically is open houses.
Okay, so I'd love to get your perspective on two sides of this issue. One coming from the realtor. What are some keys to doing a successful open house?
So for doing an open house, one, you have to have signs up. Like, yes, there's the...
How many is enough?
At least 15.
15 signs.
At least 15 signs, yeah. So that's what
and
we
this is
teach.
not like in front of the house. This is obviously at cross streets,
yeah,
right?
This isn't like that company that like puts the happy birthday or the happy graduation sign, and it's like the whole yard is just a sign for them.
Right.
It's not like that. You do want to have signs, obviously, in the yard and at major intersections and at the cross streets,
Sure.
directing traffic in, because you may get people who are beginning the process, and as a realtor, we want to work with those people. They're not committed to an agent. We want to help them, if they're beginning the process, get pre-approved with a good lender.
What's good signage? Because I've seen a variety of different types of signs, open house signs. Is there some certain signs that work better as far as how big the print is? Is it better to have a picture of the realtor on the sign, the company they work for, or generic signs work better?
Yeah. So what we teach, and I didn't come up with this, so I can't take credit for it, but there's a guy by the name of Brent Gove, and he was like the open house king. And he's actually a business partner of mine and a dear friend. And what he taught me was you want to get the signs that say they're yellow with black print, so they stand out against greenery, against signs, against whatever backdrop they're put against. They stand out well. Because if you have a blue sign or a green
Sure.
sign, depending on some situations, you can't even see it.
Right.
And
So bright yellow with black lettering.
Black lettering, and it says open house, list of motivated buyers is what it says on there. Now that doesn't mean that the owner is motivated. It just means we have a list of motivated
So even
buyers.
if you're not interested in that house, they've got a list of other available properties that you might be interested in that area.
Correct. And so
Love that.
So we have a system, an algorithm that will actually pull homes from the MLS, and through these key factors, we're able to identify who is a motivated seller. And so then we are able to present that to the people coming through the open house and say, hey, if this home doesn't work for you, here's a list of motivated sellers who might be willing to negotiate on price or terms.
Okay, cool. I love that. So any other keys to having a successful open house?
So you want to have the signs up as soon as possible. You want to show up and be ready on time, if not a little bit early. And as far as, again, this is more like speaking to a real estate agent.
Sure.
Like the term is love the one you're with. So if somebody comes into an open house and you're talking with them and you're having a great conversation, and then somebody else comes in, welcome them, be polite, but then pivot back to the person you were having the conversation with. Because if you have a couple of half conversations with 5 people,
Yeah.
you haven't made a connection. You're not really able to understand their needs. And so the goal for a realtor at an open house, it's successful for the realtor if they have at least one rock solid appointment after that open house.
Okay, great. So their goal is to have at least one appointment after that 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour open house.
Yeah. And so what we teach too is you can do them 7 days a week. So a lot of people think, just on weekends.
Right.
But Valor and I actually did 90 open houses in 90 days. So 90 consecutive days, we did 90 open houses. And so, it's a great place to work if the home's vacant and you need to do stuff. Like you might as well set up a temporary storefront and meet the neighbors and meet potential clients. You're not going to meet potential clients in your
make
house.
good use of the time. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming from the family that's looking to buy a home, or they're in the market, or they see the signs for an open house, is it okay? Or let me put it this way: what should potential home buyers be doing? Be asking? What should their experience be like when they're going to an open house?
Yeah, so there's different categories of buyers. So if somebody is like interested in that home and they're not working with an agent, then they need to start asking questions like, hey, can you share why the seller's moving? What's their timeline? What's important to them about this sale? Like find some factors out. And if the realtor's doing their job, they'll ask them, hey, do you have an agent, or are you just figuring this out on your own, because then dual agency can be created. If that's the agent's listing, oftentimes it's not. It's more of a buyer's agent in there rather than a seller's agent or a listing agent. And so they need to have a conversation about what that buyer's looking for and see if this home checks the boxes and if they can make it work. Now, if you walk in and you have a realtor, but your realtor's not able to be with you at that open house, all you have to do is just hand them your realtor's business card and just say, hey, you know what, I'm here. This is my real estate agent. I'm just here to tour the home. And thank you so much.
I don't know many people, though, that are carrying their realtor's business cards.
Well, the realtor needs to coach them on that.
Okay.
Right. And so oftentimes people will say, hey, yeah, I have a realtor. I didn't want to waste my realtor's time. I'm just in the early stages, still figuring out what I want. So they may not have a business card, but so if you're touring the home and you're trying to figure out, hey, what are some potential red flags as a buyer? You don't want to be going through their stuff. You don't want to be you want to be respectful, first of all. If you're bringing your kids along and you want to make them part of the process, totally encourage that. I think it's fantastic, but just make sure they're not opening cupboards, they're not grabbing stuff out of the drawers, they're not jumping on the couches. Imagine this was a jewelry store. How would you wouldn't want your kids to touch anything in the jewelry store. Just be on your best manners, best behavior. And so, but while you're there, you want to be looking at the roof. How's the roof look? How does the front yard and backyard look? What's the neighborhood like? Are there a bunch of, is there pride of ownership in the community? Or is it maybe not so much pride of ownership and you're afraid that the guy who's parking his El Camino might end up parking it on your lawn one day, And so looking for stuff like that. And then the biggest thing that we look for typically, or not the biggest, but something that I like to look for is the exterior of the home. I like to walk the exterior and just see how the maintenance has been on the home. How are the eaves? Is there evidence of dry rot? Are there things that are going to potentially pop up? How old is the HVAC unit? How old's the water heater? How old are the appliances in the kitchen? Just the visible bones of the home, and just kind of get a feel, okay, if I were to move in here, what would potentially break? Right, what would I be responsible for if I was the new homeowner? How are the fences? Are they leaning? Are they old but standing straight up? Just things like that.
Sure, absolutely. Be very investigative, right? Don't afraid to ask even the smallest questions about the most minor things in the home.
Yeah, and so we teach our
because that's going to be important to you.
Absolutely, and so we teach our agents to have a we call it an open house checklist. There's I can't remember, it's 27 different things on this checklist.
Oh, really? That's cool.
That they need to know the answers to. So is there Melrose? Is there HOA? What is the HOA fee? What does it include? How old's the roof? How old's the HVAC? Just things like that. So then that way, hey, is there an addition? Was it permitted? Can you park an RV here, or is that against the CC&Rs or the HOA? And so you just want to make sure that you have all those questions answered, so that way if you do decide to make a move in that community, you're ready.
So one more question about the open houses. Now, if I'm a neighbor, is it wrong for me to go visit an open house if I have no interest in buying or selling my home? Are realtors annoyed by that? Because I know that happens probably quite a lot, where people see the open house signs and they got a free weekend and it's fun to look around, and especially if it's a home that's in your neighborhood, because they're going to potentially be your neighbors.
Yeah.
Is it wrong to go check out the house?
So my answer to that is absolutely 100% no. It is not wrong to check out the house. But you got to realize what you're walking into. You're walking onto, if you walked onto a future Ford lot.
A car dealership.
A salesperson's going to come out and try to talk to you and engage with you.
Right.
That's essentially what you're walking into. So if you want to tour this person's home, if you want to be that neighbor that kind of sees how they decorate, you've never been in there, you're just curious, totally fine. But just
don't waste the realtor's time. Well, tell them up front, hey.
Tell them up front, say, hey, I'm just here to check it out. Totally get that. And be respectful. What I don't understand is why, our jobs, there's so much liability when we open up somebody else's home and just allow strangers to come in.
Right.
You wouldn't do that as a homeowner.
Right.
But you're allowing somebody else to do that for the sale of your property. So when they ask you to sign up, or they ask you to, just put your name down and provide some information, sometimes that stuff gets stolen from these open houses. You have to make sure that your valuables are locked away, that your guns are put away, that the drugs are put away, your prescription drugs, right? And so there's just all these scenarios. So when you're walking into somebody else's house, just realize you're walking to somebody else's house. The least you could do is sign in and be respectful.
Right.
In case anything goes down, you know, like
Yeah.
we can contact you. During COVID, it was a big deal. What if somebody contracted COVID and you didn't sign in, and now you didn't know that you were in a house?
You bring up an interesting topic that I'd love to ask you on. As a realtor,
Yeah.
do you make the people coming into your home sign in order to come into the house and look around, or is it optional?
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the whole NAR lawsuit thing that's moving forward. We'll have more clarity around that in coming months. But as a general practice, we like to have them sign in.
Okay, so you ask them, but you don't demand it. Do you say, hey, we need you to sign in to tour the house?
It depends on the seller, too.
Yeah.
Right? Like if the seller's like, hey, I want to know who's been in my home.
Okay.
They're very security conscious. Then it's like, hey, like sign in. Or book an appointment with your real estate agent if you want to see the home.
Right.
Like you have
Interesting.
options here.
Yeah. I guess like you said, it depends on the owner of the home and the realtor and different
Yeah.
circumstances.
And the vibe. Like sometimes if they look like they belong in the community, like you saw them walk out of their house, then that's, you know, a little bit more understanding. But if it's somebody who just came whipping in and there's two parties and one person's trying to talk to you while the other person's walking away, you know, and exploring the home, like that's a red flag.
Right.
Like somebody's trying to keep you tied up there. That's another thing you need to do if you're a real estate agent, is never do an open house alone.
Oh, really?
Like
Why?
It's so dangerous. So dangerous.
So who would you bring along with you?
A good either another real estate agent or a lender.
Okay.
So just at least one other person, because if it's a multi-story home, then there's at least somebody on each level.
Oh, gotcha.
Because there's horror stories about people hiding in closets, and then the realtor goes to lock up the house, and they pop out of the closet and do something terrible to the realtor.
Oh, wow.
Or the realtor leaves, and then they steal stuff from the home. So you just want to at least have two people there for safety reasons.
So give us a little tease about the book, and we'll talk about it in the next segment.
Oh yeah, Who Not How. It's by this guy named Dan Sullivan. He's an absolute legend, and other guy named Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And the focus is oftentimes we're asking, how can I afford this house? How can I accomplish this goal? How can I complete this task? And the more important question is to ask, who can help me accomplish this goal?
Oh, interesting.
Who can help me complete this task?
Okay, cool. So we'll talk about that next.
All right.
How do you know you can trust someone? Usually we ask other people, right? Are they honest? Are they ethical? Do they have good character? Do they do what they say they're going to do? And oftentimes we'll go to Google reviews, right? To look up what people have said about them. And I got to tell you guys, nobody has more 5-star Google reviews than my friend Johnny Jennings and the Made for More Living team. Go look them up. See what other people have to say about them. Why so many listeners in our area have worked with Johnny Jennings and trusted him and the Made for More Living team to sell their home. No matter what kind of condition your home is in, or hey, maybe you want an all-cash offer. You want to be done. You don't want to hold any open houses. Johnny Jennings can get you an all-cash offer today, and you can be done. Again, we know this is an important personal transaction for you, and there is nobody better that you can trust and have a conversation with, a cup of coffee with, than Johnny Jennings and the Made for More Living team. You get more with Made for More, so Google Johnny Jennings, Made for More Living team.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Everybody is so obsessed, like Simon Sinek. I think it's all about the why, getting into the why, and that's your opinion
In
too.
life,
In life,
you gotta know your why in order to progress down your journey that you're on. You gotta have the why. That's the root of it all. You can't just be going through the motions if you don't know why you're doing it. You don't agree with that?
Not entirely, no. And so here's why. So I work with a lot of agents. I coach a lot of agents on our team, and part of my job is helping them achieve what it is they're working towards. Because we're all here not, just because we like showing houses and we like meeting great people, but we're here ultimately to earn a living for our families.
Sure.
And then all people.
That's your why.
That's the why. And so people have different goals on what that is. So like income goals, shall we say. But their why is almost always universal. Why are they doing it? To improve their quality of life, to provide for their family, right? To have time freedom. Like the whys are all the same. And if the why was so important, if the why was the determining factor between somebody's success and somebody's lack of success, then all real estate agents would be successful because they all have very, very similar whys. Most people outside of business as well, like outside of real estate, have the same why. I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it for security. I'm doing it for...
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And if the why was the driver, then why are we not all
That is
successful?
a very good point. I hear what you're saying. But I think maybe a lot of people that are not successful, they're not rooted in their why. They're not tied into it, or they're not connected with their why as much as they should be. You know, I think oftentimes you need a constant reminder of, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And a lot of people don't do that. They get stuck in the mud of just going through the motions. And from time to time, they need to go on a retreat or to a conference, or even just spend some time with your family and realize, okay, this is why I'm doing it. And you're right, though. You are right that for most people, it's a universal why. It's because I need to make a living for myself and provide for my family, or just for myself. But oftentimes there's a little bit more to it. You're obviously not in real estate just because you want to provide for your family, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing that I have found that differentiates the people who achieve success in real estate or in other areas of life. And that it's not the why, it's the what. Specifically, what is that person willing to sacrifice? Like, if you're Michael Phelps, are you willing to get up early in the morning and do the same freaking strokes your entire life? Are you willing to do that?
Good point.
What are you willing to sacrifice? If you're in real estate, I can't tell you. Like last night, I was putting my kid down, and I got a call from one of our agents. Picked up the phone call because this guy's like he needs my help. I have the information he needs, and if I help him correctly, he's going to be able to provide an income for his family. So Jack had to wait. Jack is 2.5 years old, and he is very good. A lot of real estate agents' kids are very good at this. Some not so much, but when their parents are on the phone, they know they have to be quiet because their parents are working. And so what are you willing to sacrifice? And I'm not saying one thing's bad. Like, people have different goals, different aspirations. I'm not saying one thing's better than the other, but what that person is willing to sacrifice is different.
Yeah, that's a great point. You're right.
And I guarantee 100% the people who are out there that you, like, not you, Matt, but like just people look at and think, oh, they have it easy, or I wish I could be like them, or I wish I had what they had. Like, their problems are way bigger, and they've sacrificed way more than you have to get to that point.
Yeah.
And so you have to dial in not why you're doing it, because everybody wants to do it for their family. Everybody wants to have some stability in their life. They want to maybe go on some vacations, build some wealth. But what are you willing to sacrifice to make those dreams a reality?
Touche. Good point. I love where you went there. But that's not what this book that you're talking about is about, right? No.
So Who Not How, it's a book.
It's called Who Not How.
Who Not How. And
it's written by
Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And
it's not a book just on real estate, or is it?
No, this is not a real estate book. This is I would argue maybe more of a business book.
Okay.
But it applies to all areas of life, because the simple premise of the book is, let's say if you want to lose weight, who can help you lose the weight? Like, ultimately there's a certain sense of personal responsibility, but who has the information that can help you attain that? It's
not this is the right diet or exercise plan. It's who can help me with this.
It's who can help me. If you are looking to do financial planning and save for retirement, who is the person that can help you with where you're at and help you get to where you want to go? So
what the book is saying, then, bottom line, is people that are successful have the strategic people in their lives to help them.
They're constantly looking for the who. They're constantly looking for the who. And so if you have a problem in business or in personal, like marriage counseling, for example, right? Like if you have a problem with your marriage, who can provide insight and clarity on how to fix this? And so rather than trying to think of how can I fix this, who can help me?
Right.
And so when it comes to real estate, and you're thinking, hey, the market's too high, interest rates are too high, I don't know what the first step is, I don't even know if I can get enough out of my home. There's just all these, how do I solve all these problems? Instead of thinking, how do I solve it? Start thinking about who has the information that can help me with this.
I like that, because there's a lot of people that are in the same boat as you are, facing the same type of circumstances with the economy, with the inventory, with the interest rates, but they have been more successful in either selling their home or purchasing the home that they want because they've connected with the right people that can help them.
Correct. And there's so many different people involved in a real estate transaction besides the real estate agent. And so I was talking recently with somebody who was thinking about selling their home on their own and doing a for sale by owner type of a situation. And I said, hey, totally get it. A lot of people are wanting to save on fees and add that to the bottom line. But like, if you were to go down this route, who would you use for title and escrow? Like, who's a good title rep or escrow officer? How do you know if the inspections being performed are legitimate or not? Are they with a good company or not? How do you know the closing costs are set up in a way that's customary in our market and you're not getting taken advantage of? How do you know how to properly disclose things so then that way, if the sellers or so the buyers end up having some issues, they can't come back and sue you? Like, there's just those little nuance or offers. When an offer comes in, how do I know if this is a good offer? How do I know how to negotiate this offer without leaving money on the table and not losing this buyer? And that's where the real estate agent comes in. That's the knowledge that the real estate agent brings to the table. Marketing is a huge piece. Don't get me wrong. If you're selling a home, marketing is huge. But what's more important is really the negotiation stage.
Right.
So we do a lot of marketing. We do tons and tons and tons of different there's different avenues that we take to make sure that you're netting the most amount of money. Like, we have a Bay Area buyer program. We have a smart seller program. We have a buy before you sell. We have all these different tools and all these different avenues that we can promote your home. But the real kicker is, if we have these offers, the best offer is the one that's going to close.
Right.
So how do we identify which one is the best offer that's going to close, and how do we see that through to completion? Because everybody can know your home's for sale, but until it closes, that's when you get paid as a seller.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And I like I think a lot of people feel anxious about reaching out and connecting with people, thinking, I'm going to waste their time. I don't want to be a burden on them. They're busy. But that's a false assumption, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So with real estate agents, we are tasked with having real estate conversations. In order for a real estate agent to feel good about moving the needle in their business, they need to be having real estate conversations on a daily basis. And so by you reaching out, you're actually doing that real estate agent a favor, because you're helping them talk about what they're passionate about, talk about what they're knowledgeable in, and really just provide a service to you. It doesn't cost you anything, and you're really helping that real estate agent's business.
And then on the other side of the coin, from the real estate agent's perspective, it is so key in order for you to be successful, to do well, to sell more homes, that you are part of the right team where it is about who you know. If you're trying to do it solo, it's just proven that you're not going to be successful as if you're on a great team that can help with every single aspect of your business.
I love that you bring that up, Matt, because in the Who Not How book, they talk about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was in the NBA, I forget how many years, but for a number of years before he started winning championships. And the things that changed that helped him win championships were who's.
Yeah.
He was still playing basketball. He was still really good at basketball, but the who's changed. He brought on Tim Grover as a personal trainer and Phil Jackson as a I almost said a real estate coach, but as a basketball coach. And so that is what changed. And then Phil Jackson went on to have a repeat performance, basically, with the Lakers. And so Phil Jackson was an integral.
So that was proven, right? It showed that Phil Jackson was a key component of Michael Jordan's success.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not taking anything away from the individual, like Michael Jordan or whoever it is or yourself. We're talking about yourself, but
you're right. Who knows if Michael Jordan would have been able to do that with a different coach or with different teammates if he didn't have Scottie Pippen, It's true. It's a great point.
And so it's really about the who's.
And so who knows how far you could go if you worked with the right people, like it Made for More,
Correct.
You guys have put together a solid team of people that are experts that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there and you're trying to do it solo, which sometimes I think is kind of assumed as a real estate agent, right? You're out there doing it solo, you're independent, you're on your own. But that doesn't necessarily always have to be the case. In fact, more people are successful when they're part of a great team like the Made for More Living team.
Yeah, and so we get contacted by agents regularly who tell us, man, I wish I would have found out about you guys sooner. I wish I would have started with this team rather than with this team. or rather with you guys rather than at this brokerage, because it's so hard being a real estate agent. Over 9 out of 10 real estate agents leave the industry every 5 years. And so the average lifespan for an agent, there's very few agents out there that last longer than 5 years, just because it's such a grueling industry. It's not what TV makes it out to be. And so, unfortunately, there's been so many times where people come to us and say, hey, I've racked up credit cards, or hey, I've had to get another job, but if I had known about you guys before, I would have had these tools. I would have had these lead sources. I would have had this support that was lacking in my previous situation. And so it just disheartened, because I can't do anything about, like, they call it the 90-day rule. Whatever you do today, like if Matt, you were looking to buy a home, and you and I started having a conversation about you buying a home today, on average, could be shorter, could be longer, it takes 90 days for that real estate agent to get paid. Just working, like if you and I were working together. So it's the 90-day rule. So if somebody joins the real estate team, we say, hey, if you start having real estate conversations today, you might get an escrow in 40, 45, 50 days. But on average, it's 90 days. And they're like, oh, man, I just don't have a 90-day window. I'm going to have to take this job with the state.
Right.
And that's not what they're passionate about. That's not what they want to do. But they were in a bad situation to begin with. They were on a bad team. They didn't have the right who.
Right. So that's good. So what kind of people are you guys looking for?
So we're looking for people who are hungry, humble, and coachable.
Not hungry in that they have been surviving on top ramen, right? Not that kind of hungry.
No, not that type. Not like you're on a.
Not
you're
the hungry
fasting.
where you're desperate.
Yeah, so hungry. I do like desperate.
You do like a little bit of desperation.
I like desperate in the sense that, hey, I burned the boats. That I'm all in on this. This is my chosen profession. That I don't have a plan.
You've burned
B.
the ships.
I burned the
that.
ships. I don't have a plan B. This is what I want to do for the next, 20 years. This is what I want to make a career out of.
Okay.
I like that because it means you're committed to your craft. I was on a call yesterday with one of our ISAs. It stands for Inside Sales Agent. What an ISA does on our team is they set appointments for our agents. So they set qualified appointments with buyers and sellers.
Oh, I love that.
It's a massive value add to the agents.
Sure.
And he called me up and he was all fired up because somebody had another assistant that we provide our agents with had gone in there and was messing with his with some of his contacts in there, and it was messing up his follow-ups. And he was all fired up. He kept, hey man, I'm sorry if I'm coming off, intense or, hot-headed. And I'm like, no, I love this. This means you care.
Right.
Right. And so we want agents who care.
Like that.
And so if this is just like a side gig, if you just want to have a hobby, hey, I'll sell a house or two a year, then that's not what the industry needs. That's not what your clients need. Your clients need somebody who's all in.
Yeah.
Who's desperate.
That's awesome. And that's why Made for More is the best, because you guys want the best and you get the best. So if they want to reach out to you, it's just madeformoreliving.com, or they can Google Made for More.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oftentimes we hear someone ask, what is it going to cost me if I choose to do that now? But rarely do you ever hear someone ask, well, what's it going to cost me if I choose to wait? And that's something we really need to consider and ask ourselves when it comes to selling your home. What's it going to cost me if I choose to wait? Right now is a perfect time to pull the trigger, especially when you're working with my friend Johnny Jennings and the Made for More Living team. You're going to get the most money possible in the shortest amount of time. He's going to treat you right. You can trust him, just like so many of our listeners have. So reach out to Johnny Jennings, Made for More Living. No matter what kind of condition your home is in, he can help. Google Made for More Living, because you get more with Made for More and Johnny Jennings.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Out of all 50 states, every single one, hands down, Val and I chose California, Matt, despite we're going to pay that sunshine tax as long as we can. But it came down to Northern California or Southern California. And we are so thankful that we picked Sacramento, because what we like to describe it as, especially like the Roseville, Folsom, El Dorado Hills, Rockland areas, we like to describe it to our friends in Southern California as an affordable Newport. Like
Really?
Yeah, the road, the streets are so nice. The shopping's great. The schools are fantastic. You don't have the beach, but
yeah, you don't have the
come
beach.
on, that's
and
okay.
the weather is not even close. Talk about those scorching summers.
Hey, that's what
Man, I
God
just
made
think
AC.
that's a bad comparison.
Well, but it's so nice. There's so
but I
many-
get what you're saying. As
Yeah.
far as the living experience, as far as the shopping opportunities, the communities, the schools, stuff like that, it's somewhat similar, sure. I just think it's funny. You're comparing a beach town to a river town.
Hey, it's all good. There's water. There's
That's
water.
true.
And you have Lake Tahoe. You have Napa.
That are
you
about
have,
an hour and a half away.
You
sure.
have all these great people fly from
I'm
all
not
over
digging
the
your
world.
choice. Obviously, if you would have chose Costa Mesa or Newport, then we wouldn't be friends. But I just
Yeah.
think it's an interesting choice. I would hands down pick Newport, but I just happen to be here in Sacramento. And Sacramento, the greater Sacramento area is great. I love it. Obviously, I would choose Northern California as a whole over Southern California.
Yep.
And
Like
yeah.
people talk about traffic, up here, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, did you hear about that report that came out that listed the safest places to live in all of California?
I did hear about
And
that.
number one is a town I've never even heard of. It's called
Rancho something or
let's
other.
see, Rancho Santa Margarita, which is interesting.
Sounds like a drink, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. But it's in Orange County, and I guess they're calling that the safest city to live in California. Now, in our area, Lincoln was number 7. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Lincoln is super safe.
Yeah.
Lincoln and Rockland. I'm surprised.
Rockland's number 9. Roseville did not make the top 10.
Come on, Roseville.
Yeah.
But Roseville at times has been ranked one of the top places in the country to live.
It's true because of all the opportunities, but with growth comes crime and traffic and all those kind of different elements. So I think Roseville has seen that with all of the growth that they've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, forever they've been one of the fastest growing cities in America. But with that, there's more traffic. I mean, holy cow, that 65 bottleneck.
Yeah.
It's nonstop, no matter what time of day. And then you're going to have more crime, obviously, with more shopping centers and stuff like that. So, yes, Roseville is great, but I do think that it's not always the safest.
If they were to fix one thing like that I would pick, it would be fix the 65.
Yeah.
Please.
Did you hear that the California Transportation Commission approved 2 toll lanes coming up? They're going to build toll lanes. Do you know what toll lanes are, right?
I do.
They have them in Southern California, the Bay Area.
I know.
And that means they're going to probably, they said, connect 80 to 50. There's going to be a toll lane during peak traffic times that will charge you about $1 a mile.
$1 a mile?
Yeah, to avoid traffic.
But it is going to connect the 80 to the 50.
Yes.
That's interesting. I would pay
Yeah.
$1 a mile to avoid freaking going down Hazel.
Every single day.
Yeah.
So anyways,
wow.
That's interesting. It's just talking about the different aspects and features and benefits of living in Rockland, Lincoln, Roseville.
It's an incredible place. It truly is. I get it if it's not for everybody, but we have so many. We've met so many people who've moved from Southern California that
Sure.
that just the vibe is similar.
Yeah.
Granted, the weather's not.
The summers,
But,
once we
yeah.
hit July, last summer was pretty pleasant. We'll see what's in store for this summer, but it's not too bad.
So speaking of summer, with the market heating up, or with the weather heating up, the market is also heating up, and we're starting to hear more talk about dual agency. So when the market heats up, a lot of times buyers are frustrated; they're not getting their offers accepted, and so they might be looking towards the listing agent, the person representing the seller, to write their offer in the hopes that that'll give them an edge.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so here's my take on it. I personally will never dual represent.
Why?
I won't do it.
Seems like that would benefit you.
Yeah,
right?
you get 2 paychecks instead of
There
one.
you go.
But it's kind of like hiring the same divorce attorney to represent both parties. Like how is
Again, that seems like that would make sense.
what? No way.
No, it just seems like more efficient, right?
But
what is the conflict?
Who's gonna represent that party in its entirety, like to their fullest?
Yeah,
Like,
you
how
got a
can-
good point.
How can I fully represent the buyer and fully represent the seller at the same time?
Because on both sides, you're trying to negotiate, right? You're trying to get the best deal for your client.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you're representing the buyer and the seller, that's a conflict.
It's an absolute conflict. And I don't understand, like with all these lawsuits and stuff that are going on, I don't understand why they just didn't make that. Like lead with that. Let's make dual representation not allowed. But
Do you see that a lot?
It's very rare. It's normally 1 in 10.
Okay.
But
even 10%.
Yeah.
So you see it as much as 10%, huh?
Yeah. But with the whole lawsuit thing, like what they've done is now they've essentially pushed buyers to the listing agents. And so they're now almost encouraging dual representation, which is a huge hornet's nest. Because, again, how can you fully represent two conflicting parties? And so how we handle it on our team is at least there's like a degree of separation. If somebody comes and they're interested in one of our listings, then we'll refer it out to one of the agents.
That just seems complicated, though, because if I'm a family and I'm shopping for my home, obviously and you're the expert on this, you would know, you put in offers on multiple homes. There's not just one home that you put an offer in, right?
Well, technically, you're only supposed to put an offer in on one home at a time.
Well, yeah, even so, though, sometimes that offer doesn't get approved or doesn't go through.
Yeah.
And so that just seems like so much work on the buyer's end where you're working with one agent who's selling that house and then you leave them if you're interested in another home.
Yeah.
That just seems overly complicated.
And you don't really know them. There's not a relationship there. How do they really know what you're wanting or looking for? Like all that responsibility is on you as the buyer.
And I would always be suspect on whether or not they have my best interest at heart. Because
that's exactly right.
Their first loyalty is to their seller.
Yep. And so they do it because oftentimes people do it because they're trying to get a deal. They say, hey, represent me, and then kick me off some of the commission on closing costs. So they're looking for a deal. But man, it is not, to me, it's not worth it. It has never ended well. Like I just don't feel good. Even if both parties are happy, I don't feel good at the end of the transaction because it's like, how did I ethically represent both parties 100%? Well,
that's what we appreciate about you, Johnny, and the whole Made for More Living team is that you guys are ethical and honest, and you don't always find that with all the companies that are out there. So I think that's why we recommend you guys, whether you're trying to sell a house or buy a house, work with somebody you trust. Work with somebody that you know is going to be ethical and honest. And yes, they're out there to earn a paycheck, but they're also in it for your interest. They want to do what's right.
Yep, your success is our success. If you want to get more, call Made for More.
Right. Get more with Made for More. MadeForMoreLiving.com, or they can just Google Made for More. Right.
You got it. All right. Thanks, Matt.
No problem.